Hello, ladies and gentlemen, fellow coder. Coder? I guess it's really just you, unless you're watching with a group of people. Anyway, welcome to this next lesson of the FreshVotes series, where we are building a real-world Java web application from scratch, leveraging cool Java technology such as Spring Boot, Spring Data, Hibernate, JPA, that kind of stuff. So in this lesson, we are going back to revisit the concept of leaving comments. And in order to leave a comment, we need to, know if we are the creator of the comment or if we are just a regular old user. So to test this now, let me open up my database and go and check and see if we have more than one user in our... Okay, we do. We have a couple of Trevor Pages and one John Doe. Cool. So good. Well, I want to be able to assign features to other users so that we can, test this whole functionality. So cool, we have that. So let's, check box that part of it. And then the next part is we need to be able to, we need to know where we're going to modify the code next, right? So basically, I've fired up my server here. Let me go and log into the application, and let's visit the page that I want to mess around with, which I guess is this page when we actually visit the feature. So it's the products/product ID/features/feature ID is the endpoint. That is the endpoint that we are targeting here. So I would want to target the GET request for this URL template in order to know what data to pass back to the model or what have you, or what view to edit. We probably have the data that we need on the model already, but who knows? We'll see. So product ID/feature/feature ID. So that is most likely in the feature controller. Product ID features, feature ID get mapping. So this is the one. I even have a little to do in here. We won't handle that to do in this particular lesson. Let's see. So we're adding a feature to our model, so long as one exists. And I believe the feature has the user ID, right? So it has the user that has created this feature request, but actually we don't have the feature that we're currently logged in as. Okay, so let's bring it in. Authentication principle. Ladies and gentlemen, Spring Security at its finest. There we go. Now we have the user object, the user information for the user that is logged in. Let's put on the model the... let's just call it user. We could call it the logged in user, but I mean, typically I use the word user to denote the logged in user. But anyway, now we will put that in the model, so therefore we'll have access to that on the front end, right? Which is in the feature.html page, I believe. This is where we want to start messing around with things. So we have here the form and the form group. And here's the input, right? So here's the actual text box that holds the title as well as the description. So essentially, I would assume I would need to add a disabled property to these fields and maybe hide the button in the event that I am not the owner of this particular feature. So how would I do that? Well, I can do a th disabled equals, and because normally in order to disable something, is it disabled? Yeah. In order to disable something, you'd put disabled equals disabled. Okay, let's just test that to make sure that I'm not losing my marbles here. Let me log back in. Yeah, so let's see, it's disabled now. We can't do anything with it. So that's how we disable it. But we don't want to always disable it. We only want to disable it in the event that we are not the user that owns this particular feature request. So we augment it with Thymeleaf, okay? And the value that we pass in here is going to be based on, it's going to be an expression. It's going to be, we need to figure out if we own this or not. So how do we know if we own this? Does the user's ID... Okay, so user.id refers to the user that we've placed on the model, and that refers to the logged in user. In other words, my ID. Is my ID equal to the ID of the user on the feature? Right? So the feature's user ID. The feature's user ID. So if these two things are equivalent, we'll use a ternary operator here to return disabled. Oh, sorry, other way around. We will return nothing, right? Because if I am the user who owns it, then I don't want to disable it. Therefore, the disabled value should just be blank, right? If I am not the user who has created this feature, then I do want to disable it. Okay, this is the ternary operator. We have an expression which resolves to true or false. We use a question mark, and in the event that it's true, this value is returned. In the event that it is false, this value is returned. So if user ID does not equal the feature user ID, then disabled is returned. If the user ID does match the feature user ID, then we return nothing. In other words, we do not disable. Now, I say that. Hopefully that's actually works. Let me refresh. Ooh, look at that. I refreshed, and it looks like it's still disabled. So why? Let's take a look at I'm going to hit F12 to open up my dev tools. I'm going to click on this little element selector and select this guy, and I see that disabled is populated. So something's going on here that I am not, something's up. Something isn't making any sense. So in other words, we sort of need to figure out what's happening here. So one of the low-tech ways of doing this is just to have some spans or some divs, right? Div, and we'll say, user.id equals. I can't do that. Sorry. How can I do this? Div th-text equals, because we're going to need to make this dynamic. User.id equals user.id. Okay, I'll explain this bar syntax again in just a moment. Actually, I'll do it like this. I'll use the bar notation here. It's for string concatenation. That's why these bars exist. And I won't use the bar notation here and show you how it's just a little bit more annoying. So if I'm not using the bar notation, I need to specify this kind of stuff, this kind of syntax. I need to have my th-text is actually a string concatenated to a variable value. At least I think that's how you do it. I haven't done this in a long time, this non-bar syntax. But in other words, both of these should do the same thing and export the user ID. So let me just hit refresh. Yeah, see, they both do user ID equals 1, right? So both of these output the same value, but this one's a little cleaner to do, right? The bar notation gets rid of the need to have single quotes as well as string concatenation. Okay, so that's why I use the bar notation. But for this one, I'll do not user ID, but feature. I guess I can capitalize it to make it somewhat equivalent to each other, even though it shouldn't be capitalized. But anyway, you get the idea. Feature.user.id, and I'm going to concatenate feature.user.id value here. So if I refresh, okay, so they equal each other. So those should equal each other. So what am I losing my marbles again? So user.id equals feature.user.id question mark. So this should be true. 1 equals 1. Therefore, it should return nothing. Okay. What am I missing here? Right? Because if I go here and look at, disabled equals disabled. So maybe, here's another test. Let me go down here for this text area. And actually, no, I don't want to use a text area. How can I do this? Maybe I'll have another input as a type equals text, just so we have the same thing. And I'll say class equals, form control. And I'll just say disabled equals nothing. And then I'll have a value of test, right? Just to have a test text box. Yeah, that one's disabled. Okay, so even though the value inside of disabled is not there, it's still, okay. So the issue here is that we don't want to have the disabled property appearing at all on our element, okay? And that's an HTML rule. Or maybe it's a Google Chrome way to handle this. Maybe it varies from browser to browser. But the point is we shouldn't have the disabled property here. So really what we want to do is you want to add a disabled property in the event that these two guys are not equivalent to each other. Okay, so how do we do that? I think it's th-adder equals is the is the property that I want to leverage here. I'm going to do a search on my workspace and look and see if I've used this before anywhere else. No, I have not. I just can't remember off the top of my head how to use this. So let's attrapend Thymeleaf, example. Okay, dynamic attr definition, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you can use, attr required equals, field is required, blah, null. I wonder if that will still work or not. Thymeleaf conditionally add property to element. Class append. Oh, I guess conditionally add and remove. I just saw they use an append over here, right? In this other one, I saw them say append, add or append. Data. Okay, so maybe that's what I want to do. Add or append, and then we put the thing. Okay, it's a little bit convoluted, I will say, but and I've never used this before. But let's see if this works. Add or append disabled, right? Because they say, yeah, equals, and then we have, interesting, we say null otherwise. Is that going to work? So we essentially have the same ternary operator here, like so. Let me get rid of the th disabled. Let me paste it in here. Oops, let me make sure I have proper syntax. Paste it in here. So there's our ternary operator back in there. But instead of returning an empty string, I will return null. Okay, let's try that out and see what happens. And then we'll get rid of our test element here because I just confirmed that we should not at all include the disabled property on the input box if we don't want it there. Okay, interesting. So it looks like that worked. Okay, it's not disabled, which is great. But now we need to change things. So for feature ID 4, let's change the ID of the owner, okay? So the IDs that we have are 1, 2, and 4 to work with, the user IDs. Okay, I did the select start from users. Those are the 3 user IDs that I have, 1, 2, and 4. So now we say select start from feature, and feature ID 4 needs to change to another user ID, 2 or 4, right? So let's change feature ID 4's user ID to point to 2. Okay, and I'll say apply, and this is essentially the statement it'll run, set features user ID equal to 2 where ID of feature equals 4, and there we go. So now if I refresh the screen, there we go. So now, I just clicked my open folder too many times. Now if I refresh, nice. So user ID equals 1, feature user ID now equals 2, and we are disabled. Cool. So that worked. That is what the attrappend worked. Now I want to try something a little bit different. I want to try, maybe for this guy, I'll do th disabled append equals, and then we will use our ternary operator thusly. Copy, paste. So you see what I did there? Instead of doing adder append, I'm doing disabled append. That way the th-adder, I don't have to say disabled equals in here anymore. Okay? Because th-adder is more of a generic thing that allows you to specify whatever property you want if it's not a standard property. HTML, I should say, yeah, HTML property. But disabled is a standard HTML property, so maybe Thymeleaf has this disabled append functionality. So let's see if that works for our description. I don't think it did. I don't see that it's disabled, but I do see, oh yeah, disabled append equals disabled. So that didn't work. So I think we need to say th-adder append like so, and then we need to say disabled equals that stuff. So I thought maybe there was a workaround to make it a little bit less, syntactically heavy there, less stuff, but there you go. It works, right? So that's wonderful. Now, if let's say we go back to, go back to the dashboard and look at another feature request, like another request here, you see that these are both visible, right? They're not disabled, so that's good. Whereas this one, which one was it that we were working with? Feature ID 4? Where's feature ID 4? Was that in product 2? I don't remember anymore. 7? 6? Where did it go? This one? 3? 4. Here it is. I don't know how I missed that. Okay, cool. So you see it works exactly as expected. Fantastic. The last thing is I want to get rid of this save button if, again, we do not own this particular guy. So essentially what we can do here is we can have a th if statement, right? So we can say th if. So an if statement will say, the way an if statement functions is when the expression inside of the if statement is true, then it renders as you've typed it. If the expression inside of the if statement is false, it does not render the div or whatever element that it's tied to, as well as all the sub elements. In other words, the button as well won't render if this if statement is evaluated to false. So again, what am I evaluating? It's the same thing. It's, well, sort of the same thing. Well, I'll just do this, right? It doesn't have to be a ternary operator because really the if statement just wants the expression to return true or false, right? We don't need to do anything else with the true or false return value. That's what the if statement does. The if statement takes the true or takes the false and does something with it. Whereas our ternary operator here, we needed to say what we wanted to do with the true and or false, I guess true or false evaluated expression. So we would need to tell it what to do, right? In other words, we're telling it to return null, or otherwise we're telling it to return disabled. Okay. Hopefully that made sense. So hopefully if this works properly, the save button will disappear. Well, really this whole div with the button inside of it will disappear if these do not equal each other. If the user ID is not equal to the feature.user.id. So in other words, when I refresh, hopefully that save button will disappear. There we go. Okay, great. And if I switch over to like feature 3, now it appears, and I can click on save, and everything should work fine, right? Fantastic. Okay, let me go back. Feature ID 4. Okay, so now let me just temporarily let me delete this stuff, this debugging text, this lo-fi way of debugging. We'll remove that. Save the HTML file, refresh, there you go. So now we've prepped our UI in such a way that if you don't own the feature, then hey, there's nothing that's going to happen, right? You can't do anything except for leave a comment. Again, I wanted to get to the part where we actually code out the comments section. But hey, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. There's a lot of work to do here, ladies and gentlemen. So in the next video, we're actually finally going to be diving into the process of building out a UI to be able to add comments to our features. So looking forward to seeing you there. If you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel and you like this kind of content, please feel free to do so. Give the video a like, the whole process. I'm sure you know it by now. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, whatever, leave it below. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, check out the channel. Cool? Cool. Can't wait to see you next time. As always, happy learning. Take care of yourself, and bye for now.